Everyone. I'm Michelle Mansour. I'm the Executive Director of ActionAid Australia. I'd like to start this webinar by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge any First Nations people who are joining this call. ActionAid acknowledges that this was and always will be Aboriginal land. So on behalf of ActionAid Australia, I want to thank you for joining us and welcome you to this webinar focused on the war on women in Gaza and Lebanon. ActionAid Australia is part of a global federation working in over 70 countries to advance women's rights and end poverty and injustice. A core part of our work is supporting women's leadership on the front lines of crisis, including in current contexts in Gaza, West Bank and Lebanon. In Gaza alone, our partners have reached over 500,000 people with urgent medical support. And never have we seen an emergency that has had such a devastating impact on women and, of course, children, including the absolute denial of women's reproductive rights, their safety and security and dignity. And I mean, also the, unimaginable horrors of seeing so many children who have had limbs amputated as a result of bombing of civilian targets. So tonight we stand in solidarity with people in Palestine and now in Lebanon who are facing unimaginable horrors. For Palestine, we know this is deeply rooted in decades of occupation. So I want to appreciate our three extraordinary women leaders joining us tonight, Riham, Soraida and Michelle, for taking time out of the emergency response to be with us, to share the situation on the ground and to help us understand how Australians can take action in response to these issues. I'd also like to introduce and welcome our host, Antoinette Lattouf. Many of you know her. She's a journalist and author and a formidable advocate for the people of Palestine and Lebanon. So Antoinette, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle, for that introduction. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we're going to put a much needed spotlight on the women of Palestine and Lebanon to bear witness to their stories, their ongoing hardships. Many of us are watching from afar in despair, wanting to show solidarity and wanting to find out ways to craft that need for solidarity into meaningful action. And a few weeks ago, you may be aware or may recall that ActionAid released a really harrowing report. And in this report, it detailed the severe impact on women that the ongoing war on Gaza is having, the escalation also at the same time in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian women are, as we know, as we've seen, live streamed on our phone, bearing the brunt of violence, forced displacement, and systemic discrimination. In recent weeks, the situation in Lebanon has escalated dramatically, with 1 million people now displaced. The situation in Lebanon is so dire, and the window to prevent a full-scale humanitarian crisis is closing rapidly. We know that women are most vulnerable in times of conflict, and that's why this conversation tonight is so important, to center this struggle, to center women, to humanize women, to hear their stories. And who better to do that than these three incredible women who are there on the front line providing emergency response. Riham Jafari works for ActionAid Palestine. Riham is based in the West Bank. Her work involves advocacy and raising awareness of how war impacts all aspects of lives of Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank, especially women. Welcome, Riham.
Thank you. I'm Antoinette. Thank you. And thanks for ActionAid Australia for organizing this webinar, this important webinar at this time of the world, and to highlight and to give an opportunity for the Australian audience to know directly about what is the suffering of women in Gaza and West Bank.
Also, Soraida Hussein joins us. She's the country coordinator for Palestine and ActionAid in Spain. She's a renowned women's rights activist and a gender and advocacy expert whose work is dedicated to raising awareness globally of the situation of Palestinian women. Soraida, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the time, the efforts that you all colleagues are putting on this webinar. And thank you for everyone that is present and come to hear us, because for us it's very important always to have the opportunity to raise the voices of Palestinian women on international spaces. Thank you so much for coming and being here.
Michelle Mansour is our final panelist. Michelle is ActionAid's Humanitarian and Resilience Program Manager in Lebanon. Her work is focused on supporting marginalized young women in Lebanon and working, of course, on the current emergency response. Michelle, hello.
Hello, Antoinette. Thank you for having me in this webinar. And I'm really glad to take this opportunity to talk about the current situation in Lebanon and how it's affecting vulnerable, displaced, vulnerable community members, especially vulnerable women. So thank you for this, and looking forward to our discussion.
We'll get underway. There's a lot to cover. If at any point anybody listening has a question to ask for any of our speakers tonight, you can go ahead and use the Q&A chat function. It's a Q&A function specifically, and I'll try and get to as many of those questions as possible throughout the conversation. But let's dive straight in, and we're going to start in Gaza, where the human rights atrocities have reached catastrophic levels. There's no other way to describe it. More than 5% of Gaza's population has been killed, injured, or is missing since the Israeli military offensive began over a year ago. And more than 1 year on, sadly, there seems no end in sight. Riham, can you tell us what is happening right now in Gaza? What is daily life like for people, particularly women and girls?
Thanks, Antoinette, again. So the life in Gaza has become a nightmare since last October 7th last year. The women, the families in Gaza, their life become a continuous displacement, continuous running from place to seek a safe place or seek a safe shelter in Gaza, continuous loss for families, for a friend, for relatives, continuous damage, living between rebels, searching for food and waiting for long queues to getting water, to get food, which has become very limited in Gaza. Gaza before is used for agriculture land. For example, Beit Lahia, which is now in the north of Gaza, which is under a severe blockade, a severe targeting, a severe slaughtering in Gaza, which was known for its farms of strawberries. Gaza used to export food to the world, to export vegetables, to export fruits for the world. Now Gaza is being starved to death. Under the eyes of the world, the crimes are broadcasted live on the social media before a silent word. It is a nightmare life. It has not become a usual life. Now, the people of Gaza who are still alive, their main wish has become to die. They wish death because they've lost horizon for ceasefire, because the world governments, the world leader failed Gaza, disappointed Gaza and its people. They failed to reach a ceasefire. 1 year of killing children, killing women. More than 70% of the victims and the told are children and women. The daily life begins with checking who are still alive of their families or who are killed during the continuous airstrike during the night of Gaza. The night means a continuous airstrikes falling on people, on the residential buildings in Gaza. The daily life is a displacement with no information where to go. The most question the people ask in Gaza, where can we go? Where can we find a safe place under the forced displacement orders? So they are given the displacement orders 10 minutes before starting bombing. How the people can they seek or have or find a safe place. This is the daily life. The daily life for the woman starts how can in shelters, overcrowded shelters, with lack of privacy, with lack of water, with lack of latrines. Now, one latrine in Gaza is shared by more than 4,000 people or person. The woman in Gaza is the last and the least one who eat because it gives its share and the priority to the children. The people, the pregnant women who became pregnant through the war are very afraid, are in a constant state of uncertainty, of fear, of stress on how she will deliver under this condition.
Riham,
They cannot.
Riham, you've painted a really important and dire picture. We are going to get to some of the specifics about the challenges women face in particular in just a moment, but it's absolutely harrowing and devastating to hear that people are wishing death when they wake up. That such is the plight and such is the scale of the destruction. Michelle, I'm going to come to you now in Lebanon, and I know that your Wi-Fi and internet isn't stable at the moment. So if you can't turn your camera on, we understand, or that you've come back. Over the past month, we've seen a dramatic escalation in violence, and just the past week, the Israeli military airstrikes have hit densely populated areas. In Beirut in recent days, in villages in the north, more than 2,200 people have been killed, around 10,000 wounded, hundreds of thousands, if not close to 1 million displaced. What are you seeing on the ground? How would you best describe it?
Yes, so Antoinette, Lebanon's humanitarian crisis is rapidly worsening each day. And with Israeli airstrikes and displacement orders affecting more regions each day. So it's like not only in the south and in certain areas, but it's all over Lebanon now. And this has been the case for the past month. Things have been escalating and worsening by the day. And now we have we have densely populated areas, further damaging critical infrastructure and leaving civilians highly vulnerable. For example, in the past 3 weeks, violence has escalated significantly, causing widespread civilian casualties, mass displacement, and extensive destruction, especially in Beirut, in the greater Beirut area, in the Bekaa and in the south, marking one of the deadliest periods in Lebanon's recent history. So, as you have mentioned, Antoinette, there are over 2,000 people now that have been killed and more than 10,000 have been injured, with over 1.2 million people that have been displaced internally and affected, with the number still rising up until now. Civilians have basically fled their homes repeatedly as airstrikes are covering larger areas now, with leaving them with fewer safe places to resort to, basically. We have many people who have left their homes with nothing, and they have lacking access to shelter, food, and basic necessities. We have also entire regions and buildings are in ruins now. Basic needs are unmet, with disabled individuals literally sleeping on the floor, and many lacking food, medicine, warm clothing as winter approaches. So basically, people have left their homes with nothing, and this is like tragic at this point. And now in Lebanon, we have shifted all schools and universities, like the majority of schools and universities have been shifted to shelters for people to flee into, basically from unsafe areas. These shelters are currently ill-equipped. They lack functioning bathrooms, basically water or electricity. The emotional toll is really high in Lebanon, and especially with the displaced individuals, with many individuals, especially children. They are traumatized. They are unable to eat and sleep. So
yeah, and
also we have many schools. Yeah. Yes.
And you mentioned, obviously, this is all as we head into, or as the Middle East heads into winter. Soraida, to talk more specifically about how women bear such significant and additional burdens in these situations, can you tell us how what we're seeing in the war on Gaza and the occupation in the West Bank, how it's disproportionately impacting women? Obviously, ahead of or in addition to the devastating
Yes.
death toll. Can you get into some of those details that perhaps people don't consider about how this impacts women?
Thank you, Antoinette, for the question. Yes, it is important to touch on this issue because in the West Bank there is also going on, and like 2 years ago we said, and we thought ourselves that we are exaggerating, and we said it is a slow genocide going on, and it looks like yes, it is rising and rising more. How in one of our studies we used the following phrase to make it clear how it impacts women. We say, is the same bullet going to both of them, but the impact is different on women. So it's the same attack and the same violence, but in Gaza, we saw that it's a war on women, as this webinar says. So
Can you give
there
some
are,
examples?
excuse me?
Oh, can you give some examples about how
Yes.
that hits women?
Sure. If we are going to talk about the young women who are going to school or are going to the university, these women are facing many challenges. Like, for example, in the West Bank, the movement is very restricted. There are more checkpoints than ever. Some checkpoints open and close on certain hours. These young girls going to the university or high school, their movement is being restricted. So this kind of restriction made by the Israeli occupation reinforces patriarchal norms within the society. So for women, it's not easy to move. There is no free movement for women, especially for the young. When these checkpoints are in place, so it reinforces these patriarchal norms, and the movement is very much under control. Pregnant women, as Riham said in Gaza, especially when we talk to women who are pregnant for the first time, it's horrible for them. They don't know where are going to have the baby. Mothers of newborn babies are also very afraid because there is no, if something, an implication happens for the child, if something happens, she doesn't know where to go. In the West Bank, the first thing that the Israeli troops come and attack are the hospitals. So in Jenin refugee camp, for example, a little baby that was born 1 week before the attack died because they couldn't go out of the house to take the baby to the hospital due to a high fever suddenly, and it's a first-time mother. She didn't know what to do, and the hospital was under attack, so the baby died. So all this is a toll in the mental health on the feelings of women who have to appear strong in front of the families. They are the ones to bring the families together. They are the ones to embrace the families, to put them all together. And members in the family look at the mother as the role mother of strength, the role model of strength. So she has to be strength, but she is a human also. So this is this discrepancies in the role of women. Now she's having more roles than ever because in our efforts in the Palestinian society, Palestinian women's movement, we have been successful to change some of the images that our society have on women. Now, with this violence, military violence going on within our societies, being thrown to us by the Israeli occupation, it's hard for us to talk again about the same things on gender equality. We are trying to do this, but this is very difficult because the gender roles are being impacted. First,
Yes.
impacted some men, for example, in Gaza, they are doing roles that they didn't do before, and this is good. We know that it will finish as soon as the war finished, but we are still men who are making the bread and taking care of children. This is good. In the West Bank, many men are in prison, and others are in the run. Others are, so women are having double roles, and for them is not being able to move and to go out of what they all the work that we do. So it is very, very bad affecting the women. And for example, one of the things that we are always concerned, and I finish here, is that we know that there is an internalization of violence from the societies when it comes from the military. So this internalization of violence that is very natural in humans, when humans live in a violent context, they internalize this violence, and then it goes out on their GBV, gender-based violence or domestic violence. We are very concerned about how the military violence of the Israeli occupation is affecting women and families in general. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this report, if you want any more information, thank you so much, Soraida, for that summary, but it does look at all of these impacts: maternal health care, lack of food with women eating less than last so that children and other family members can eat, additional workload and caring responsibilities. Soraida talked about that gender-based violence. There's also information on forced marriage and, of course, the devastating mental health impacts, which brings me to my next question to all of you. You all play important roles leading crisis responses, and as women bearing witness to mounting devastation and indescribable human suffering, it may seem like a strange question for me to ask, but how are you coping? Michelle?
Okay, honestly, Antoinette, the situation is devastating. The trauma and fear among people and among ourselves, basically, it's growing. We are scared. We fear for our lives each day. We feel that our lives as Lebanese or even as Palestinians, as our colleagues have that they have mentioned right now, the struggles, we feel our lives don't matter. You know, like Lebanese lives, Palestinian lives, we just don't matter in the world. This is what we are facing right now, and this is what we feel right now as Lebanese citizens. Trauma and fear is growing. The situation is worsening each day. The needs on the ground are escalating rapidly. So Lebanon in general, is on the verge of a full-scale humanitarian crisis, and immediate action is needed to prevent it. So this is a shout out to the international humanitarian community. Please don't forget Lebanon. Please don't forget Palestine. Mention Lebanon in all your, all your meetings, all your discussions, because our lives also matter. So I just wanted to pinpoint this out, that we as Lebanese citizens currently, we feel that our lives don't matter. We feel that we're fighting for our lives each day. It's a struggle. It's like we don't matter and we don't exist in the world. No one is listening to us. This is like a shame, honestly. Like we didn't expect that, but like we are living in the 21st century, basically. We would never expect like the situation to get to this in Lebanon. We're basically scared. We're basically fearful for our lives each day. We are surviving like on a daily basis to to cope with the situation. The mental health of people and ourselves is like we are so depressed, we are so down. People, especially displaced people and especially women. And maybe we will talk about this later on, Antoinette, I'm not sure, but like it's a struggle even to women. And as our colleagues have mentioned from Palestine, gender-based violence is increasing rapidly with reduced access to protection services and safe spaces for women. Women in Lebanon are facing significant challenges due to the ongoing war. They are bearing the burden of displacement, often responsible to care for their children
Michelle,
and elderly. So
Michelle,
yes.
I'll just jump in at this point. It could be something as simple, but something people can take for granted who aren't living in the conditions that the Lebanese and Palestinians are currently living in. That women who fled their homes are struggling to manage their periods.
Exactly.
Because they don't have
Exactly.
or clean water or soap.
Exactly.
Privacy.
And yes, I would like to stress on this issue that now the need for dignity kits, basically, or the need for sanitary pads and items that are intimate for women, they are on the rise, because women literally left their homes with nothing, like not even like they don't, with no money, with no clothes, with no, sorry to tell you this, with no panties, basically. And now they are like I heard stories that are dreadful. Women are using newspapers or like plastic bags within their periods. Sorry to say this like bluntly, but this is the situation now. The need for sanitary pads and the need for dignity kits is rising each day, especially in the shelters where women are currently, where women have fled to the to shelters in various parts in Lebanon, of the dreadful situation that women are facing, basically. And we are trying as much as possible as humanitarian organizations to support women with their needs and prioritizing women in these in this harsh circumstances.
Thank you, Michelle. And in a short while, we will be discussing some of the ways in which you can show solidarity and take action. And they include things like a donation, which could go towards a hygiene kit for women. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Before that, Riham, I want to check in to see how you're doing and how you're coping.
Thanks, Antoinette, and thanks for Soraida and Michelle. We have many similarities with the suffering of the women in with Lebanon. Wars are not neutrals. Wars are not gender neutrals. Yes, the suffering, the period issues, the hygiene, the sanitation items, they are the same things that the women in Gaza suffer from. Women in Gaza used and resorted to use scraps of tents and some nylons and some plastic issues as alternative to sanitation pads. Imagine, and now imagine this the situation, because there the sanitation items, the hygiene items are prevented from entering Gaza. Gaza needs every day 1,500 aid trucks. What was delivered, for example, during this October, and we are now on the 17th days of the month, just only until yesterday, 241 aid trucks for people of Gaza. Can you imagine?
I think this is a good point for me to jump in, because there may be some people wondering if these trucks aren't entering. Obviously, the situation in Lebanon is different, and aid is arriving and hasn't been blocked or doesn't have those obstructions. So why should people continue to support and donate given that stagnation of the arrival of the trucks and the deliveries?
So yes, there is a deliberate hindering for aid trucks, but the people of the world could need to continue their support to humanitarian aid organization, because the humanitarian aid organization like ActionAid can transfer money to local organizations working in Gaza, which are forced to buy something items, the available items with high costs, but because they do not have other options, they need to respond to the humanitarian needs of the people. And even if those money is donated, they are kept and they are secured, and with international organizations who will buy, who will build their response, and under the continuous advocacy demands for opening crossing borders, these money will be used later in responding to the people of Gaza. And for example, as ActionAid, our aid truck, hygiene aid trucks are waiting in Al Arish, in Egyptian city, waiting for a permit for a facilitation to be allowed to Gaza. So the money at the end of the day, at the end of this war, will be spent and will be allocated for the needs of the people. There is a hindering for the aid. It is a hindering and it is an obstruction from the Israeli side, because it uses the aid, the food, the starvation as a weapon of war. It is because now the people who are not killed with airstrikes, with bombing, they are killed with starvation, they are killed with thirst, they are killed with lack of medical treatment, they are killed with coldness, they are killed with diseases. So this is the situation. We need each cent, we need each dollar to be transferred and to be allocated for responding and for fulfilling the needs of the people in Gaza and the women and the children.
In the recent ActionAid report, we also read some incredible stories, Soraida, of women who are leading and taking action to support their communities. Can you tell us a bit about these women, or was there anyone in particular who stood out for you, whose story or courage and resilience you want to share?
Thank you, Antoinette, for the question. Is not strange when you ask us how we are coping, because this is a very essential question for activists and for people like us living in this situation. I will share with you all that I cope sometimes, but by looking at the video of a girl of 10 years old singing in Gaza. She's in the rubble and she is surrounded by other children and they are singing. So when I am down, I just put the video and sing with them. So there is a lot of this strength in so this child gives me strength. When I talk to people in Gaza, they tell me in their words is like, go on, don't give up, push again ahead, and go more and more. We need people like all of you that are listening to now. We need you all. And this is the thing, when we listen to each other, so we cope. I cope by crying sometimes. I spend days crying and sometimes singing. It's very human. It's very feminist. This is the activism that we have here. One example of one of them that gives me hope again and again is like one nurse in the hospital. Their house was destroyed. Part of a family were under the rubble and the other part were buried. After the second day, she was again in the hospital working. Colleagues told her, why are you coming? So she said, if I am not here today, who will be here? So it's the sense of all of us feeling that we are essentials, we are important. Another initiative is a young girl with her brother in a very, very little money. They go and buy bread and do bread with their mother, and then go and distribute the bread to their neighbors in the camp where they are, just for free, because they had not extra weight, they had amount of weight. Another thing is these young men, it's a group of them, they wear like clowns and they go and make cycles with children to make them laugh and to to air out the distress and the feelings that they have from this war. So there are hopes, there are lights, there are hearts that are in all this scene that Riham and Michelle and me, that we are talking in Lebanon and in Gaza, there are. And another thing is that, my last sentence, please don't underestimate any support you can send. I have personally witnessed the effect of $100 when they come on time for a family. If it's not today, it's tomorrow, it's after tomorrow. Your money will not be lost. Your money will be saved, as Riham said, and it will come on time. I'm sure in this period, in this every penny counts. Yes, and it will be in Lebanon or in Gaza or in the West Bank. It will have an impact. Don't ever underestimate any support. And it's not only money, it's also your voice, your presence in the street, your shouting in the streets. Don't ever underestimate. It's people who are saving humanity and not governments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soraida. To get to some of the specifics, because a lot of people, and a lot of people ask me, I want to help. What can I do? There are so many different avenues. I don't know what to contribute, what to support. And so let's kind of narrow down and explore further some of the services provided. I know that ActionAid has a strong focus on supporting women in emergency. So can you help me understand what that work looks like in these situations? So Riham, over the past year, ActionAid has, as I understand, reached more than 230,000 people with humanitarian relief. Can you tell us specifically what sort of support you're providing and who's accessing it?
Thank you, Antoinette, and thanks Soraida and Michelle. So ActionAid started its work in Palestine in 2007, focusing on humanitarian development and relief and emergency assistance for women, for youth, and for marginalized groups. Before the war and Gaza, you know, this is not the first war Gaza has passed through. There were four main wars against Gaza in the past. And also all the time, we also working on empowering women, Palestinian women, to have their own roles, to be empowered, to have active participation, to influence their community and their decision makers and their duty bearers. And also during emergencies, during COVID-19, during wars, we focus on relief, providing them with food, with shelters, with sanitation, hygiene kits, dignity kits, psychosocial supports all the time. And also we provide them with legal support, legal counseling, and during the war, post-war eras, we try to provide women with safe spaces where they can express their fears, and they can receive the assistance they need. We also in the West Bank provide with them with economic empowerment activities and help support them to hold their duty bearers responsible and accountable for their responsibilities towards the women and their communities. We also build networks among the Palestinian women and the Palestinian Women Organization to give them the space to lead the change in their community. So our work focuses on two levels: development, economic empowerment, political empowerment, and active participation, and also on relief assistance. Now in Gaza and the West Bank, we focus our work on relief and emergency, and also on advocacy and empowering women. We support women-led organization. Our organization or partners, for example, Palestinian Women Development Association studies Badawsa, the leader of this organization, could establish a shelter for displaced women and families, taking into consideration the women needs. You know, women need to be empowered, to need to have the space, and they can have the capacities. As Soraida always said, Palestinian women are active and participating for decades before the coming of organization. They have their political participation and the community participation, and they need more support to continue this participation, to continue representing women. Women know the needs of other women. Women know the needs of their community. So they have the support, and they continue supporting other women. So we continue, and during this war, we also try as much as we can. We mobilize funds. We could purchase to provide dignity kits, to provide women kits.
And so those I'll jump in here. Thank you, Riham. Just about those dignity kits that you mentioned. So a donation of $55 could go towards a hygiene kit for women and girls in Gaza and Lebanon to manage their health and hygiene. We also heard about the distributing of food packages for families, and a donation of $170 could provide one family with a food pack. Michelle, in Lebanon, we've seen, and we've talked about this evening, that more than 1 million people are displaced and been forced to leave their home. ActionAid has shifted to acute emergency response. What kind of support and practical support is ActionAid providing the Lebanese?
Yes, so basically now we are working with our local partners in Lebanon who are located in different areas, whether it's in Bekaa or in north of Lebanon, along with the support of ActionAid Denmark. We are providing aid in relatively safer areas, more or less, such as Beirut, Bekaa, and Jibshanin, Mount Lebanon, and North Lebanon, Tripoli. But resources are extremely limited. The need is the need is highly increasing on a daily basis. But up until now, we were able to successfully support and aid approximately 1,500 individuals from the past month up until now, more or less. So we supported them basically in distributions, specifically distributing hygiene items, sanitary pads, mattresses, food boxes, dignity kits, and specific and other items as needed by the community members residing in the specified areas of intervention. We are also supporting displaced individuals, especially women, through psychosocial support sessions in the area of Bekaa and in different areas in Beirut. So in addition to the distributions currently being made, we are also doing PSS sessions with our partners. I would also like to stress on the fact that the youth core team members that we are working with under ActionAid and our local partners, they are also supporting in the distribution process on the ground. So I would like to thank the youth members for engaging with us, especially young women who are actively participating with us, who are motivated to work and do more each day to make a difference in the lives of the vulnerable displaced populations and community members. So those are our interventions, and we are striving even more now to attain more funds from relevant international humanitarian agencies, and even with ActionAid International and other federations to bring about to additionally support these communities, and we are actually striving to support all areas with whatever they need. So as our colleagues mentioned now, the more every penny counts. The more we support, even if we support, if the amount is minimal, let's say, it's not only about monetary support, it's also about emotional support, providing emotional support for individuals, listening to these individuals' needs. It's not only giving distributions, okay, and our role is finished. No, we have to support the community members emotionally as well, making them feel safe and secure in a way. So this is highly crucial at this point, since it's not only about physically supporting, but also the mental health of individuals is impacted currently. There is massive destruction, especially in the south. People have lost they have no homes, basically. Can you imagine an entire area in Lebanon is destructed? It's not present anymore. So this is drastic. We have more than 1 million people up until now. They have reached over 1,200,000 people that are totally displaced all over Lebanon. They are homeless. So the more support we have from international agencies and from international communities, the better we would be able to serve these vulnerable individuals. So every penny counts, every support counts. It's not only in money or in aid, it's also providing emotional support to these members and making them feel seen and heard. So this is an important point to mention as well.
Yeah, it's a very important point. And as we also know, it's not just about donating. And Soraida, you mentioned it before, screaming it in the streets. And I'm just going to have to zip around quickly because I do want to get to the questions from some of our participants. But if there's one bit of practical advice of an action you can suggest a member from an international community like in Australia that they can do beyond donating, and that could be going to a protest, that could be writing a letter to their parliamentarian. Soraida, I'll start with you. What practical action do you think somebody can take above and beyond or in conjunction with donating?
This is a very important question, because when we elect when people elect the government has promises to them. So one of the things is we really have to know who are we electing? Are they really believing in human rights? Are there these governments respecting the human rights of their people and of others? So it's one thing. Another thing is everybody can write to the parliaments and to the person that is representing them in the government, asking their advocacy, and also following the what the government says about this crisis, and linking the crisis outside Australia and outside other places with the values and the principles that this government is claiming. And so making them accountable, this is one thing. Another thing, don't think that all these students in the universities that went and gave their voices out didn't do an impact. They do. So it's shouting in the streets, it's writing the letters, is also teaching others, not teaching, but telling others about what's going on, and linking this with the humanity of everybody. It happens here in Lebanon, it happens here in Palestine, it happens in Rwanda, it happens in other places, but it's about us all. So it's linking the things and reaching out to organizations like us. We are ready to provide materials, we are ready to talk, we are ready to talk to students, make these links so that more people is aware what's happening, because this is important for all of us, not only for those affected.
Very well put. Riham, I am super keen to get to, there's a lot of questions from our audience, but a quick bit of practical advice or some kind of action of solidarity people in the international community like Australia can take.
Yes, they, as Soraida mentioned, they can join all the protests organized on Palestine and Lebanon. They should ask their representative to organize more actions, their parliament members to keep demanding the government of Australia to loud its voice for reaching ceasefires. They need to ask their media, the Australian media, to cover, to have a neutral and a human angle for covering the situation in Gaza and Lebanon. They should also ask the Australian representative for UN and for the Security Council to speak more, to speak loud for the humanity. The case is not Palestine. The case is not Gaza. The case is not Lebanon. The case is the international accountability mechanism. The case is international just order, just system. If Gaza is not justified, is not established, there is no justice for Gaza and Lebanon, the terms of other worlds and the nations in the world will come within. We do not want a brutal system to prevail in the world. We need to establish justice. We need to establish international justice. We need to establish international accountability mechanism. This is what we want. Now, today is Gaza and Lebanon, but we do not who will be the next victim of this disorder, of this brutality, of this colonialism, And now here is the role of the people, of the nation, to ask their representative, their members, to talk loud, to ask to reach ceasefire. Each one of you here, of the attendees, have their member. They should write them immediately. Why you do not raise your voice for demanding ceasefire, for demanding end the war in both Lebanon and Gaza?
Thank you. And if you want to help translate some of that excellent advice into action, if you check the chat box, there are a range of links that you can follow. That includes letters imploring, or information for letters to implore political leaders to support ActionAid and to support women to more specifically support women in Palestine and Lebanon. Also links to the various ways that you can donate. To some of the questions now that have come through, I'll put this one to you, Michelle. The question is, being at the coalface in Lebanon, is this conflict any scarier or different to previous conflicts? And Also, do you see hope on the horizon?
Yes, honestly, yes, it's much scarier than previous conflicts because this is the first time we witness since the war in 1975, basically more than 2,000 people have died up until now. This is a huge number for Lebanon, basically. Like we are just at this point, people in Lebanon don't want a war. We want a ceasefire. This is what we're asking for from our government, from international communities, from international governments. Basically, I don't want to go over the politics, but the situation is very bad now. We are scared and we are surviving for like on a daily basis to it's drastic. So we are demanding a ceasefire. There is like you start questioning yourself, like where is humanity? Is this really happening? Like, is this for real? Where is humanity? Where are the supporting communities? It's not only
So I think we've just lost Michelle for a moment. Her internet has been, and she did flag that her Wi-Fi was a little bit shaky.
Are you able to hear me?
Oh,
Are
she's
you able
back
to hear
now.
me now?
Yeah, you've returned now. I
Great.
think the second part
Yeah.
of the question, Michelle, is do you see hope on the horizon? And I can imagine it would be difficult to have hope, particularly after witnessing the 12 months of atrocities in Gaza.
Yes, yes. I don't want to say that we don't have hope. We always have hope for Lebanon to change, for the situation to change. Lebanon has been like this. It's not something new. It has been like this for more than 50 years. We're engaging in conflicts and we are always sharing the same struggles. This has been happening for more than 50 years, but we are demanding a ceasefire right now. I am stressing on this because people have forgotten about Lebanon. We're just like a third world country that's like, okay, lives don't matter here. It's fine. There are hidden agendas. I don't want to go over politics, but at this point, I don't want to say we lost hope. We are still hoping that there would be a ceasefire, that something would actually change from all this chaos in Lebanon for the better of the country, for the better of the lives of the people that live in Lebanon. We are tired of war. We are tired of conflicts. We are tired of actually being Arabs and because we are Arabs, we are witnessing all this just because we are a third world country. This is not acceptable at this point. This is inhumane and on so many levels. So I am shouting out to all my colleagues in ActionAid, to all international communities, to all international governments, please hear us out. We do not want any war. We do not want any escalation. We did not even ask for this. We don't want any war. We want a ceasefire. We want to live in peace. Lebanese people want to live in peace. I heard a lot of people that have left their homes in the south. They were saying, we don't want any aid and support and hygiene kits and all these distributions. We just want to live in our homes in peace. Is that too much to ask? So yes, we are still hoping for a better future in Lebanon, but unfortunately, this might take time. This might take a lot of interventions from various international entities. But please hear me out here from like a humble citizen living in this country who has been witnessing for more than 30 years the conflict, and even from the generation of my parents. We do not want any war anymore. We are tired. We are down. We are depressed. We are scared. We don't want this. Please, like, a
Michelle, thank
ceasefire
you.
is crucial at this point for both Lebanon and for Gaza. Enough. Thank you.
Thank you for being so open and so vulnerable.
Thank you.
So honest. It's what people need to hear. Another question, and I'll put this to you, Soraida. Has ActionAid been able to get support into North Gaza?
There are some trucks that lately came into and in the north is now closed, but we are hopeful that within the coming time there will be some coming. There are some organizations coming together. There are some private sectors. The efforts are going on, so that we are hopefully that yes, there have been some in the close past, and we are making the best so that there will come some, yes. And there are organizations that are not in the north, and they receive and they can send to the north by their own way, not as a track and very visible, little, but there are. So we are hoping all the efforts doing in these 2-3 days lately that will bring this support to our people in Gaza, yes, in the north.
And the final question, which I will put to you, Riham, thanks for sharing your voices and insights. Actually, there are an incredible amount of messages saying that listening to your voices and your honesty is giving people hope. And there's an enormous amount of gratitude for your time, your expertise, your honesty, and your vulnerability. So in addition to this question, in addition to thanking you for sharing your voices and insight, are there any ways we can vote with our money? And that's other than donations. Actually, I'm happy to put this to anybody who thinks they have an answer to it, but do you have any ideas of how else you can vote with your money other than a donation?
Okay. So just I want to say something here and that we missed regarding to Gaza and Lebanon. The world should recognize the Palestinian rights. If the Palestinian rights are recognized, if the justice is established for the Palestinian people and their state is recognized and they are given their state, their independence and their freedom, we will not see any escalation in the future. The story does not start on 7th of October. There should be a recognition and there should be a guarantee to secure the self-determination, the freedom, the independence, the human rights of the Palestinian people. This is the problem. Yes, we are demanding now ceasefire and the end of the world. But what we need our rights according to international system, according to international conventions and international law to be guaranteed, to be established, to be achieved. This is the core of the problem. This is the root causes. End of occupation, end of illegal occupation to Palestinian lands, and end of a blockade to Gaza, and recognize the Palestinian, their state, their borders, their sovereignty, their authority, their human rights according to international law. This is the root causes of this war.
No, thank you for sharing that. In response to that, I'm just trying to figure out a way if I can bridge your very salient point to the question that was asked about are there other ways to vote with our money? Are there any ways? I mean, some people might think, I've got money, but I don't know if I have any power. Any ways do you think that people who want to vote with their money can help achieve what you've just laid out in terms of that two-state solution and Palestinian sovereignty?
They should have built dialogue with their representative, with their governments. What is our position towards Palestinian? This should be asked by not by all Australian people or Australian state or Australian citizens, by all the worlds of the world. What is our position to Palestine and Lebanon? Now, your morality, your humanity is determined by your position to Palestine, by your position to Gaza. If you are against Gaza, you are not a human. Now, there is no time, no space, no opportunity to be a neutral in our case. So each Australian citizen, each Australian member should ask her representative, what's our position towards Gaza, towards the people of Palestine, towards the people of Lebanon?
And presumably, I guess, put that pressure and vote accordingly. There's been so much covered this evening. I want to thank each and every one of you, Soraida Hussein, Riham Jafari, Michelle Mansour, for your incredible work, for your generosity in sharing not only the important work you do, but also the toll it's taking on you personally, for the tips, how to support ActionAid, but also regular tips for people to take civic action, and for also having hope despite the dire circumstances. It's been incredibly telling. It's been incredibly informative. An enormous thank you. I pass on an enormous thank you from all of the attendees, because I'm seeing so many messages and people are in awe of the brilliant work that women like you are continuing to do, knowing that unfortunately it's women who continue to bear the brunt of violence and destruction. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
you.
Antoinette, and thank you to
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
for anybody, everybody at home or at work, wherever you've joined us from, and if you are after more information, you can find those links, that really informative report from ActionAid, links to donations, suggestions on ways to contact parliamentarians, and other really useful information. I know that there's a sense of despair, there's a sense of helplessness, but ActionAid have tried to turn that sense of hopelessness into action by providing those tools and tips.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Good evening.